Welcome, listeners, to the Essentials of Healthy Living on 1500 AM, brought to you by the Village Green Apothecary, located at 5415 West Cedar Lane in Bethesda, Maryland. I'm Dana Lake, and I alternate the show with Dr. Kevin Pissarro, and we try to bring you a wide variety of good information all about you and your health. The show is streamed through myvillagegreen.com, and you can visit the site to hear previous radio shows as well. Also, visit the Village Green site or the store on Cedar Lane for expert advice on supplements. The Village Green is your resource for questions about your health, and they do carry a superior line of supplements from many manufacturers, including their own pathway products. I do have a guest today, and we're very excited about Karen Threlkel, and she's a doctor of naturopathic medicine, and she specializes in integrative medicine, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, weight loss, nutritional supplementation, and herbal medicine. Today, our topic is the holistic approach to using bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I want to introduce Karen right now. It's a pleasure to have Karen Threlkel, and she, as I said, she's a doctor of naturopathic medicine. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Thanks for having me, Dana.
Well, it's a pleasure. Karen and I know each other. We won't say how long we go back, but it's long, and we've both enjoyed a wide variety of experience in alternative medicine. First of all, tell us a little bit about what you do and your background and where you work.
Well, I've been in practice for 11 years. I work at Restorative Health with Dr. Ali Safian, and we've worked together for most of my career, probably a good 10 years now. And when I was in school, the thought was coming around that maybe medical doctors and naturopathic doctors could actually work together. And it was a really wonderful time to be in school because I went to National College of Naturopathic Medicine in Portland, Oregon, and we had the Oregon Health Science University up the hill from us, which was a medical school. And we actually had events of medical students and naturopathic medical students doing something together. So we were trying to get to know each other and start to work together. So I grew up with that idea, if you will, while I was in medical school, and continued with that after I graduated. I began working with a different physician initially, and then met Dr. Safian a couple years later. We have since practiced together, and it's been really wonderful to have that strong conventional medical backbone to work with, but then you have the naturopathic, less traditional side as well. So they really blend well together. We come from different strengths, and often a patient will end up seeing both of us for different reasons, and it works perfectly well together. And so Dr. Safian and I have begun working together on the hormones as well. When I was in school, I did not focus on hormones. When you are in school, really, you're learning to be a general practitioner of the natural world. And so after you graduate, you can specialize. And I really ended up working with hormones simply because those were the people who were interested in coming to see me, primarily women, and women have special issues. And so to help my patients better, I was learning more and more about how hormones affect the body and different ways of working with it. Eventually came to the bioidentical hormones, although there are also herbs and concentrated creams that you can use as well. And I just found it somewhat fascinating that we have this problem, not necessarily globally. A lot of this is happening in the United States. We have a large population in our patient population who are European, and they don't really have PMS, uterine fibroids, ovarian cysts, fibrocystic breast disease until they move to the United States.
Well, we're going to talk more about that because that's new, I'm sure, to some of our listeners. And for those of you who have just tuned in, you're with the Essentials of Healthy Living on 1500 AM. We've been talking in the first segment just about a little bit of background, and Karen's final statement I want to spin off on, because Western culture, women have a lot more problems with hormones. And this has been something that not everybody's aware of, that our menstrual cycles in the Western culture, our whole reproductive cycle, is quite altered by the way we live, what we're exposed to, the foods we eat, chemicals. So let's talk about that, and then let's talk a little bit about what bioidentical hormone therapy is.
Sure. Well, I think part of the problem that American women are having is, first of all, based in nutrition. You always have to bring it back to what are you feeding your body? You need magnesium, you need zinc to make hormones in the first place. And magnesium is one of the most deficient minerals in the body. Why? It's really not in the soils very much anymore due to poor farming practices. And so the foods that you would normally eat, like your whole grains and legumes, to get magnesium just don't have the quantity in it that we require anymore. There's actually a laboratory that you can do to find this out, but most people simply need to take some extra magnesium to make these hormones. Other problems in our toxic environment. Things such as plastics, things that interfere with your body using hormones, can be a huge problem. Detoxification. If your liver is not detoxifying well, if you are not eliminating properly, then your body may recycle estrogen and give you a more difficult period. So all of these things really compound each other, and it can be difficult to figure out exactly where you need to start, but essentially all these things need to be addressed. And there are a number of different ways of addressing it. From we're looking at nutrition, you can look at using compounded creams, and then you can eventually use the bioidentical hormones if required. I really look at it in a tiered way, because you don't necessarily need hormone therapy. And depending on the age, it may not be a good idea anyway. I find it much more difficult to use the bioidentical hormones with a cycling woman, because the woman is still making hormones, and that may fluctuate from month to month. You never really know exactly how it's going to be. So sometimes you feel like you're playing catch up using hormones with a cycling woman. Sometimes that's very appropriate. Sometimes you have an illness where that's required. You need something that's strong. With a menopausal woman, in a sense, it's a lot easier to use bioidentical hormones because her hormones are already so low. You don't have to worry as much about compounding what the body is already doing. It's a lot easier to control and figure out exactly what the right dose would be for her. Herbs, I should mention the herbs. That's also a really wonderful thing, especially for a cycling woman, to help her control her cycle a little bit better. So that's almost like the icing on the cake, as long as you are looking at the underlying problem of why you would be having any sort of menstrual issue. Cleaning up the diet, exercising, looking at stress, looking at your community as well. I think that's something that as Americans we really lack. And when I think about how other cultures, how healthier they are sometimes, they have a stronger community than we do, I think. Maybe it's because we're in Washington, D.C. that I'm getting this impression, and I'm sure it's different in other parts of our country, but I think that's a really big piece of the puzzle that we don't necessarily address. It's the whole mind, body, spirit issue when you're truly trying to help somebody be as healthy as possible. You can treat just a menstrual issue, but that will only get you so far, and something else might happen down the road. So again, it's also being about preventive and trying to think ahead of what all the different issues may be to cause this problem in the first place.